Welcome to Coach's Corner, where culture, strategy, and real talk collides. I'm Nia McConnell.
And I'm Tammer. We're breaking down this week's biggest plays, connecting the dots, and as always, keeping it real.
No topic is too big, and we're sugarcoating nothing.
Because knowing the game ain't enough. You got to know how to win it.
Let's get into it. Kevin, welcome. Thanks for joining us this week.
Always a pleasure to be here.
All right, let's jump into it. It's time for hot takes and timeouts, where we say the quiet part out loud. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in just 3 months, nearly 300,000 Black women left the U.S. labor workforce. Have y'all heard about this?
Yeah, all the disappointing job numbers have affected Black folks disproportionately, for sure.
That is correct. And then we have our girl, Tabitha Brown, who comes out with a message that was on her heart to let the entrepreneurs know, if you're struggling, get a job. It's okay to get a job where you're figuring out entrepreneurship. She got so much heat for this unsolicited advice. Is this criticism fair for being tone deaf? What do you think?
What was the criticism?
That she need to shut the hell up. Nobody asked for this unsolicited advice. You just heard this report that 300,000 Black women ain't got no damn job. Tabitha, read the room. That's what the people said.
Yeah, but I mean, just the basic understanding that, like, okay, if you want to pursue your acting career, you should probably get a job to pay the bills between now and your first actual job offer. I don't see why this is any different or how there's any controversy associated with that.
I mean, that's what she did. She had a job. Her husband had a job. I think it's because she's made it now. She's of the class that they
Yeah,
say
but
eat the
Nia,
rich.
what's weird about the thing that I don't understand is, yes, she's made it, but if she were to say something like, "Oh, just suck it up and keep driving," the controversy would go the other way. Oh, well, it's easy for you to say because you've already made it, but I can't pay my bills. Honestly, I think what she's offering is prudence, and that's, I mean, it's common sense. Am I wrong?
What do you think, Kev?
I think it's great advice, great insight. I think, some people, especially entrepreneurs, don't like to hear the truth, right? So going into a venture, often most people believe that whatever they're trying to pursue will be successful at the first swing. But in reality, things don't work out as planned. So having that consistent backup source of revenue, having a job is the smartest thing you can do as an entrepreneur while you're building, you know?
Can we name another reality too? Like entrepreneurship, first of all, within the Black community, there's a very, very heavy string of entrepreneurship. However, it's a totally different complexion, pardon the pun, to what you typically see all right, so I'll put it this way. One of the world's, great venture investors and entrepreneur, Reid Hoffman, is known for his saying, building a business is like jumping off a cliff and assembling the airplane on the way down. And that's a great quote. I've actually had this conversation with Reid. That quote actually needs a tag on sentence at the end, and that is, it's a lot easier to jump off that cliff and try to assemble that plane on the way down if you know there's going to be somewhat of a soft landing when you get there. And what I mean by that is, so many, now we're going to break this down across racial lines. You see, a white entrepreneur that worked for years before they ever made it. Well, how could they afford to try that for years if their rent wasn't being paid, if they weren't putting food on the table somehow? Well, there was a safety net of some sort, generational wealth, whatever kind of safety net that person had. White people have historically, right, in this country, at a totally different degree than most Black entrepreneurs, Black folks in general. Generational wealth is a relatively new phenomenon in the Black community, and there's a million reasons for it, but it's all very much a true statement. For her to actually offer practical advice to entrepreneurs is not saying give up on your dreams. It's, you probably don't have that same kind of soft landing that others do. You better have a plan B in place while you're still pursuing plan A. And I don't see where the controversy is.
Maybe it's right message, wrong messenger, wrong time. And I think that's valid.
Yeah, to your point, Nia, there's been a lot of commentary about the job market and how hard it is to find a job. So I could see how that message would stir up some emotions, Like, how are you going to tell us to get a job when, there's no jobs out there for us to get?
By the way, can we name something else? Like, why is it that that 300,000 black women are out of the market now? Why is it that black folks are, I think the national unemployment rate is something like 4%. And I'm not getting these exactly right, but the black unemployment rate is north of 7%. So why is it that if America catches a cold, black folks once again catch the flu? Well, think about where so much of the lagging indicator here is where these layoffs have occurred, broad base to the tune of dozens of thousands of government employees. Let's then think about, black folks historically seeking and obtaining, this is kind of a fun little trope stereotype, that good government job, with good benefits, that kind of thing.
Wait a minute. Is good government jobs gone?
Well, well, that's where the layoffs were.
I just wanna
Doge
know.
Doge came in and wiped out hundreds of thousands of positions. So who do you think is disproportionately represented there? Never forget your DEI. Forget any of that. I don't want to hear any of that. Those types of opportunities, those types of positions, that type of consistency, longevity, and security is at a premium in the black community where you don't see that in many other forms. So black folks tend to occupy those jobs, do a good job at those jobs, and when they start wiping away those jobs, coincidentally or otherwise, right? Who's going to be more deeply affected? So, I mean, there's just a bunch of shit here, but I've made this statement before. You ask my kids and they will tell you the answer to every single question in my house is racism. And it's a joke, but there's truth to it. And you can trace this back down, and that disproportionate pain being felt by black women is as predictable as anything else under the current state of affairs.
Totally agree. And then there are the women who have not returned to the workforce because of the pandemic. There are just so many factors. But Tam, you really made me think about Black people and their love for government jobs and how the landscape has changed. And so, same thing with college, the landscape has changed. And I think that we need to stop giving out old advice that just maybe don't apply.
Ooh, say more about the college thing, Nia. You're kicking a hornet's nest there. What do you mean?
Tam, I don't want to fight. But I wish I would have went to a trade other than college.
Say
It's
more.
a thing. And matter of fact, shit, it's not too late for me. I still may become an electrician, HVAC. Now I done had some plumbing problems, and I don't think I want to go down that route because I seen what those sewer lines look like. But I just feel like the degree that I'm still paying for, that I hope I never actually pay back, wasn't quite worth. I can't say that. I just can't say it because to value a degree just based on the money that you earn, it wouldn't paint the whole picture of the collegiate experience you get, especially at a HBCU. But all I'm just saying is the landscape has changed, and we may not need to tell the new babies, the Gen Alpha babies, the same thing that was told to millennials and Tam, whatever your generation is. I can't remember at the moment.
First of all, I didn't have to catch that stray. Secondly, Kevin, I'm hearing that Nia no longer enjoys this and she wants to go and become an electrician.
We're not talking about me per se. We talking about the other kids. Me personally, everyone
Listen,
knows I love my job.
so there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. In fact, like there's a great nonprofit organization called Opportunity at Work that their basic thesis is there's a huge number of jobs that have part of the job description barrier to entry is a 4-year degree that do not require bachelor degree experience to execute the job at all. And they have upskilled and skilled in the tech space and placed into high paying tech jobs literally thousands of individuals that do not have a bachelor's degree. Like that data is out there, and that is absolutely true. Going back to the historical lessons within the black community in America, education has always been the path towards independence and prosperity. Why do you think so many black women became educators? Kind of along the same thought process as the good government job. It's also along the same process of I can achieve a certain level of, whether comfort is the right word or not, I don't know, but consistency, security,
Stability.
while imparting some of that onto the next generation. So education has always been a key in the black community towards some level of economic prosperity. It's not exclusive. It doesn't come at the exclusivity of, innovation and entrepreneurship. And some people can follow a path without higher education for sure. And you're right, we should definitely cater the message to the time and the audience. But I don't think an overall, like, broad brush, absolute statement is ever applicable. And I think to each their own, right? In the
I
meantime,
agree.
my 2 kids are going to college.
I need you said let's for the record, let's not
Right.
get this confused. No, I
I haven't
totally
been
agree.
putting all this money away for all these years for them not to go.
You know what? I'm the one I have a problem with the parents who preach, "Go to school, go to school, go to school," and then they have saved not one dime for their baby to go to school. They probably didn't have it, but still, you didn't save not one dime. So now what? If they don't get scholarships, then they have to go in debt for this degree. And then it takes so many years for you to actually get a job that pays for the degree and the student loans. Meanwhile, the debt's going up, going up, going up. And then you have the farmers begging to be bailed out, but you didn't want to bail out the kids with student loans. Like it's just a loop
You
of
just hit about
unfairness.
17 topics in one statement, but you're absolutely right. You're
I
right.
know it. All right. All right. Yeah.
I was about to, I think education offers a wider range of opportunity, right? It gives you a foundation that you can utilize and skills for you to navigate the world. Whereas like, you learn a trade, you kind of reduce to that specific thing. And that could be helpful, but in this world that we live in today, you have to be intellectually agile. You have to be able to maneuver. And I think education, provides you that, flexibility.
By the way, you both have touched on this in different ways. In the college experience itself is kind of like a protected transition into adulthood, right? You paid your first phone bill in college. You got your first whatever apartment and paid your rent for the first time in college. You do all those things with a safety net because you probably have a meal plan, so you may not have to go grocery shopping and cook for the first year or two. But it's a fun transitional period from an emotional and maturity standpoint. That is one of the things that is kind of invaluable about the college experience, I think, along with the whole, the old premise that college teaches you how to think, not necessarily what to think. So anyway, I'm a believer. Like I said, I do, but I also understand the value of seeking one's own path.
Well, we talked about parents, or I talked about parents, and Tam is a parent that's advocating for his kids to go to college. But I think the real devil here is the cost of college.
Without a
And
doubt, without a doubt.
right? And I didn't think it was fair not to name that because it's not the kids' desires to go to college, it's not the parents' inability to pay for college, it's the damn cost of college. And then I'm a rant, and the cost of housing, and the cost of, I can just go on and on. I'm just so tired of the cost,
Yeah,
man.
there's been a lot of discussion around the ever increasing cost of tuition and fees and everything else relative to the value of that degree, also relative to, the cost curve for college tuition and fees eclipses or is much steeper than the, sort of net worth or net income of the families. So so those lines start to diverge pretty dramatically and the families can't really keep up. And then the burden falls to the NIAs of the world, that are going to be paying off their student loans till they're retired. I mean, those are realities. And by the way, and the thing to consider is that with the cost of the college, has the value followed suit? Is the value curve at the same slope? Are you getting that much more on a day-to-day basis? That's a tough argument to make from the perspective of the colleges.
Tam, and just to be clear, I'm trying to carry my debt to the coffin. Do you hear me? I don't want to pay these people a
That's your
damn.
plan? That's your plan?
Yeah, unless I come up on some bread, they're gonna have to find me. Aaron Bud, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, family.
So happy to have you. What's your take?
I don't know. I support the trade gig economy. I went to a university and it was the most expensive friends I've ever come across. No, love my university through and through. Love-hate relationship with the university. Let me be abundantly clear about that. But I do think that we're in a space where like the traditional 9 to 5 is kind of phasing its way out. My conspiracy theory is that the government is doing a lot of policy changes because they don't want people to be full-time employees anymore and they just want to pay contract workers so that they don't have to cover insurance, which puts more money in the pockets of the larger companies and corporations. Conspiracy theory of mine. We live in a gig economy. Like Uber drivers are gig contractors. Like Lyft drivers are gigs. Like DoorDash, technically, like, we're already kind of putting our feet there. It's just like waiting for the older generation to kind of be bumped out, and then someone's gonna just say, why do we need salary workers when we can just pay everyone a contract? And then that's another way for you to pay more taxes because as a contract worker, your tax rate is higher than a salary employee. So that's my 2 cents. I think everyone should have a side hustle to a side hustle to a side hustle. I will always have 17,000 things going on at the same time because you never know what's gonna happen, but I also am a person that loves to do multiple things to pique different interests. So for those that are not going to a traditional four-year university, that's going to a trade, that's going to a online, like creative, like school or certificate program, I support it 1,000%. If your interests change with it. I don't think a university is required for that. Although I understand how the structure of a university is good for some people, I think it's also not good for a younger generation. Like, Generation Alpha asks why way too much for a university setting.
They ask why, and they don't follow no damn instructions when you tell them why. God damn it,
This is
these
you
kids.
listen, we are going down some serious rabbit holes here. For one, like for everything Aaron just mentioned, like she runs the most technical aspects of all the stuff that we do and does it as well as anybody I've encountered, right? Degree, no degree, whatever it may be, that doesn't make her better or worse at what it is that she does. Then the other part of it is like contract versus full-time and all these types of things. The American middle class and the harkening back to the good old days type of shit it falls right is in direct conflict with what you just described, Aaron. Because the way it used to be, middle America was go get a good factory job, uh, deliver mail, whatever it is, put your 20 years in, retire at 50% pay. A firefighter could work for 20 years, retire at 50 years pay at the age of 45, get a side job if they wanted to. But pensions and those types of things, those are almost completely phased out. And what has come in its place as we get into a gig economy? What's come in its place is the CEOs of these companies are making 3 million times the average hourly employee. Whereas back in the old days of the back when America was great, so to speak, a CEO would make 3 or 4 times their average employee, right? So what has the trade-off been? Do we actually want to go wholesale into this gig economy whereby a couple of people, I use that word questionably, are billionaires and trading on the hourly rate and non-benefits and everything else of folks that are willing to hustle, 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 and DoorDash at night and do something else in the day. Like side hustles are great, but are we ultimately shortchanging ourselves? And as a result, has the American middle class disappeared? Again, how big do we want this conversation to get? You know?
I think that goes back to, like, why people are mad at Tabitha. It's because it's a broken system where a lot of us are being exploited. To say that's the solution, it's just so tone deaf in a way that it doesn't really matter how hard people are working, working, working. Only a few of us are gonna get that fading American dream that we're all chasing. And whether that's through entrepreneurship or whether that's through having a full-time job and having investments and having a 401k. Is that what it's called? Did I get it? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In Dallas, we have a station called K104. So in my head, it got a little jinky right there. But I think it was just very tone deaf. And it's just tone deaf to keep repeating the same stuff. Get a degree, get a job, motherfuckers got 15 jobs and still can't,
So
pay
now
their
you're talking
rent.
about now you're bringing up another issue. Like if you are legitimately working 40 hours a week and can't pay your rent, then you got to look at your employer. Like what are we doing? If you're employing somebody to work for you full time and they cannot afford to live, then your compensation is not matching the cost of living, and there is a problem. And for as much as we all bang the drum, in politics about a $15 minimum wage, $15 minimum wage is about equates to about $30,000 a year. You could not pay rent in Richmond, Virginia, mid-major city.
In Dallas,
You
Texas.
could not live on $30,000 a year, much less if you have a kid or anything. Like, come on, you got to be kidding me.
Exactly. Guys, this topic was so good. Did anybody else have anything to say?
Yeah, I just worry about the quality of life in a gig economy. Like where does rest factor in? Because you're constantly in motion, constantly working, hustling, chasing that dollars.
There's an The quality of life is such an interesting conversation, and it's a good one, and it's overdue. So we got a couple generations represented here on this call. Like, so for Gen X and the people before myself, quality of life was never a conversation. Are you kidding me? You went to a supervisor or went into an interview and asked about quality of life, they would ask you to leave. Right. It was you come, you work, you do not speak of your problems, and you get that job done. And if you come in and you happen to be bleeding, just mop up the floor behind you and keep on working, right? That's what quality of life was. When you had to work on an assembly line or whatever it was, there's no quality of life. It's, are you bleeding? Are you dying? Keep working. Then with the millennial generation, just to oversimplify this whole thing, people started bringing up like quality of life, work-life balance, transitioning in and out of whatever, FMLA, paternity, maternity leave, all these types of things. And now with Gen Z, as I'm seeing it, it's, I want to live comfortably today. And why am I not getting $120,000 fresh out of college to bag groceries? So I think what's happened is we went from one extreme whereby if you weren't literally experiencing a heart attack, you kept on working, from my generation, to a, I'm aware of wellness and I think I need to advocate for myself. And now we've overcorrected all the way to the point where I need to be wealthy today, and I have high expectations and no patience. I think hopefully Gen Alpha will come to some kind of sanity, some conclusion of sanity whereby we get to a happy medium. But these things are pendulums. It's a continuum. It goes too far to one extreme and too far to the next.
I think this is going to be part one of this episode. Because we're already at 24 minutes. So this is part one. And come back to us because we have so much more to talk about. And I'm talking about the Department of Defense, being the Department of War, thanks to our current president. So come back for episode 2.